everybody, we're going to keep on rolling. We've got heavy hitters all day long. We've been talking about machining. We've been talking about making horsepower, certainly turbochargers. Now we're going to move into a little nitrous oxide with Pat Musi, teaching us a whole lot. So stick around, check out this video, and then we'll be back with a little Q&A with the man himself.
My name is Pat Musi. I run Musi Enterprise here. We build race engines. We've been in North Carolina 10 years. I'm originally from Jersey. So I started out 1969 street racing, basically, out of high school. I went to the street races instead of finishing high school. So. But 1970, I opened a speed shop behind my old man's shop. My old man built diners back in the day, and I worked for him during the day, and I'd work on cars at night. And so I went, had a pretty nice speed shop back in 70, and I'd buy one piece of equipment at the time. In those days, you could lease a piece and then pay it off in 5 years if it was yours. And so everybody says, how'd you accumulate all this stuff? 50 years now it is, and I'm in business. So it kind of developed into something really big. But back in those days, you couldn't go buy an engine. There was no, I wouldn't sell my engine, Rear wouldn't sell their engine, Jenkins wouldn't really sell engines. It was, everybody did their own stuff in Pro Stock. So I started racing Pro Stock in 1974 and running my business. I was running B Modified, and it was right around the time bracket racing. Guys, don't take this wrong, you bracket racers. I'm with it, but I'm not a bracket racer. I'm a heads-up racer my whole life, and I just couldn't do it. I didn't like B Modified because of the spots, in the tree, and I saw Pro Stock was heads up, so put a deal together. My first car was a Hardy car, and went out and got it, started running Pro Stock, and we did fairly well. 81 was my last year, and I run some miniature. I finished 4th in the points, which was a pretty good accomplishment, at the time. But it just got out of my reach of money. And I tell this to Lizzie, my daughter, all the time, drives this car, drives a straight outlaw car. We're in a sport that is not just based on your capability as a person. You also have the financial part of it. And I'm not, if I'm handcuffed because of what it costs and can't do it the way I know it needs to be done, I'm not going to do it. So I kind of stayed out of it when I got out in 81 for a while, and then ran the shop, got the shop going really well. And, we always built good stuff. Like I said, from day one, we did all our own stuff. So, we heard about the Pro Street thing. Tony Christian was running it. And I'm flipping through a magazine at my desk, and I looked and I said, man, if Tony could do this, we could crush him. Sorry, Tony. I said, this is something we could do. It looks like, not a real high-dollar deal. And that's where we kind of got into the nitrous deal. I was always normally aspirated because it was a nitrous combination. So I remember the first race we went to was in St. Louis, and Tony comes walking up. He goes, don't ruin this deal. I said, for who, you? I said, trust me, buddy, I'm going to outrun you. And the rivalry started that day, but we're great friends. We talk once a week, and on screen we wanted to kill each other, but other than that, we had a rivalry. It always takes a rivalry in this sport, to get things going. We did a lot of match racing and that kind of thing. So that was my racing career. I think I won 8 of the Pro Street World Championships. Then I did a little bit of Pro Mod. In 2010, I broke my back in Atlanta in a Pro Mod car, which was Frank Brandell's car. It was a Stratus. Got the car fixed that year while I was in rehab. It took about 10 months. And I drove 2012, finished 2nd in the points in ADRL, missed it by 1 round, the championship. But I just wanted to prove that I could drive hard-headed, and I did. I drove it. And then I turned it over to Lizzie, and Lizzie took off from there. And now look at her; she can jump in the Pro Nitrous car, jump in the Street Outlaw car. You know, we got a lot of backing. You know, I mean, I've got relationships just with everybody for years. You're talking from 1970. Everybody says, "Well, how come all these companies work with you?" Edelbrock is one of our main supporters with this whole Total Seal. I can go on, you know, but we've got relationships for years. It takes that, you know. I watch it, the young guys coming up, and they want to jump right in there, and it takes a lot. It just takes a lot of dedication, you know, a lot of work. And so now we've blown into this full-blown engine shop here, and we specialize our 959 and 903, our 5300 pore space, and now it's all our own. It's our own cylinder head that Dart does. It's a billet. We built the manifolds here. You've been back there. You've seen it. So it's all in-house. All the R&D is in-house. And we've been on top for almost 8 years. You know, it's hard to stay on top in this market, but we stride ourselves on, we don't just sell you a motor. We give you a complete tune-up. We tell you what parts to use. We have all the parts on the shelf if you need something. Robert did a little tally the other day. There's close to 200 of these engines in the country and around the world of just 5300s. So imagine that. I don't think anybody's got that. You know, we're selling parts for stuff that was built in 2009, 2008, you know, our very first motors. But I like that. And then we have the Edelbrock deal. This is a 632. It's got the Edelbrock head, which you've seen the CNC machine going. So this head's done in-house. We work with Edelbrock. We're working on all sorts of bracket heads. Well, 565. So we do it all. The only thing I kind of shy away from, and I try to explain it to the customer, is the one-off deals. We try to keep our stuff, you know, you want to buy a complete deal, we'll sell you. Occasionally, if they've got a decent short block, I'll sell them the upper half, try to help them. I try to help anybody just as a courtesy to a racer, but sometimes what they've got just isn't our caliber, and I'm not going to piece it together. I can't. At this point, you know, our stuff is known for durability and staying together, and we use the best parts. Got into nitrous, probably in the Pro Street days. We fooled around really hammering on it, and they were learning days those days. I mean, we burned up a lot of parts to get to where we're at. Now we have really good durability. We went to fuel injection around 99 or 2000. We're the first. We got kind of laughed out of the pits until we turned the W on. You know? Now, it's funny, they won't admit it, but I've made every Pro Mod nitrous combination have to run fuel injection. You can't, you're wasting your time going out there with a carburetor. So, nitrous consumption is based on displacement. So let's go to a 350 Chevy. You can put X amount of pounds per hour of nitrous through it, and you get to the saturation point. That's where it gets tricky. That's where it jumps cylinders, and you got to be on your game and take nitrous away from the cylinders that are pulling nitrous from other cylinders. You know, where one system, it's simple. You don't need any corrections. But as you go up in the amount of nitrous, then it becomes tricky. And that's where we're at on our 959s. Everybody's putting more and more in them. It's kind of like Top Fuel. Who can put more in it? Who wants to work on it? You're going to work on it. You know, we've been very lucky. Our customers can go to 1 or 2 races, never have the heads off. We've done it. We've been to 3 races with Lizzie, never had the heads off. But you got to be really careful, you know. But if we have to step on it, if somebody's willing to burn their stuff up against you and make a hero run, you got to be ready for that. We're always ready for that. I kind of judge it, but I'm not going to give it to them because chances are they're not going to make the finish line. So. Well, there's a conception that nitrous burns. First off, you could light a lighter to open a bottle and light won't burn. Nitrous is an oxidizer, basically. So you're increasing the burn rate of the fuel, meaning you could burn more fuel and faster. That's why you have to retard timing. You have to add fuel, and there's a ratio. We follow nitrous per fuel. But on a basic one system like the 632, if you come to us, we're going to give you a tune-up. So it's kind of a no-brainer. For the beginner, you have to understand what the nitrous is doing for you. It's increasing your burn rate. So you have to err on the caution side. Timing is your enemy. If you have doubt, pull 3 degrees more than you think you have to pull out and get the thing safe, and then start feeding and timing. But you got to be careful when that strap starts to get blue on you. You better quit. The rule is 3 degrees per 100 horsepower. But say the motor were running 40 degrees, and it would probably run at 37 or 38, you know. I pull 3 out before I start on a nitrous engine. And then I use my ratio there. 100 horsepower, 3, 200, 6 degrees, on and on and on and on. Then where it becomes difficult is when you get your saturation point. So from a 350 Chevy engine to a 959, there's a graph of how much nitrous that thing will take, and we call it the saturation point. When you get to the saturation point, now you have suspended nitrous in the plenum that can jump holes. So on a multi-system like this, we'll go in and work on cylinders. When one starts leaking, we'll pull 2 thousandths of nitrous. It doesn't mean it's getting less nitrous than the rest of them. It's getting it from somewhere else in the plenum. So you got to work on your tune-up when you get to that point. Now, if you go past that, that's when you see hood scoops fly off and blow-ups. And, you know, that's where it gets crazy. And, you know, now in the pro nitrous world here, these guys are willing to burn their stuff up to try to get around us. So we got to be prepared for that. At any given point, a guy can make a hero run, kill the motor. If they want to do that, come on with it. Do it. Let's see, Job. I'm betting on they ain't going to make the finish line, but I'm going to still try to get after mine as hard as I can, you know, but in a safe way. You know, we very seldom you'll see the heads come off a Musi engine at a race. That so primary, I go off a leak down. I leak every cylinder, every run. If you look at Lizzie's, the numbers on the valve cover per run. So I keep up with the motor, meaning that's how I tweak cylinders on a multi-system. You don't have to do that on a one system. It's a no-brainer, like I said. So the average guy doesn't have to have that fear, or he doesn't have to do that. The second tuning tool is crankcase vacuum. When that thing starts to get in trouble, the crankcase will go down. Top ring is losing some tension. So my tuning is crankcase vacuum and leak down. Guys put air-fuel ratio in the headers. You got raw fuel coming out. You got raw nitrous. How can you read that? I mean, you're going to get lost. They think they can, but they get lost. And then my final tune-up, which has taken years, is I read the motor when it comes apart. That's the final deal. Disassemble the motor, look at everything, and then I know what to fix in certain cylinders. And I got my way of working around stuff, and that's where our final deal is. You know, the motor will talk. It'll tell you what it wants. And but you still, I go back to the saturation deal. At any given point, it can jump into a different hole, and you got to keep track of that. And then another point I wanted to touch on is an intake rocker. Your whole intake valve train is critical. You break an intake, let's just say this breaks an intake rocker. Well, now that intake valve is closed, but this nozzle is spraying continuously. So the nitrous is going to fill that port going to the next port. Now you get twice as much nitrous in it. You're going to burn the hole up next to it. So keep on top of your push rods, rockers. It's critical. And that would play even on that would be a way you could hurt a one system engine. You know, a guy doesn't hear it, runs it with a rocker off. I've seen it. and that's where you get in trouble. But you get a single system from us, we give you a foolproof, safe tune-up. You can just run it 400 horsepower to lead and run it all day long. But and the same with our Pro Mod. We'll give them a 6-stage tune-up. That's a baseline. They can go fast, but I tell them all the time, everybody wants to run to the jet box, put more nitrous in it. At the end of the day, it's normally aspirated. You can only put so much in it. Work on the car. Get everything you can out of the car. Leave the motor alone. Go up and down a racetrack. Instead, they run to the jet box, put more nitrous in it. Away you go, burned up. So, there's so much left in these cars. I mean, we're constantly, power management is our issue. We always have more power than we need. We just need to get it on the ground and make good runs. Work on your car, power management, get it as fast as it goes. Then, when you get that point, if you want to start throwing 2000s at a time in it, watch your crankcase, watch your cylinders. That's when it gets critical.
Creep up on it.
Don't go there first. Don't burn the thing up, and then you got nothing. So one of the key ingredients, which involves Total Seal, is the top ring material. The M2 is what we use from you guys. And it's been great. It's a good top ring, doesn't fail for us. It's only at the stage we're at, we're going to get X amount of cycle time on that ring, because there's another thing that goes on when you run that much nitrous. You have annealing going on. That thing, if you could, I Dream a Genie, get the head off at the finish line, that ring would be as red as your back of your phone. It's bright red, it's glowing. And then it cools down. Then you turn it red again. Then it cools down. So eventually the ring loses its radial tension. It's sitting there on a bench. And we'll look at that when we disassemble. We'll lay a new ring versus that ring and see how much free gas it's got, we call. So safety, Lizzie knows. Finish line, bottles off immediately. Purge the nitrous off that's in the motor. Do not try to restart it down there. We try to pull her back. If you have to get off the track, make sure you purge the nitrous out of it. You can have solenoids leaking while you're sitting there. Blow them out. That's when you see the manifolds come off. But on a fuel-injected motor, we got probably 3 times the safety built into it, where you see these hoods blow off and manifolds blow off are mainly carburetors because they have a full throttle switch. Our nitrous cannot activate unless it sees 3,000 RPM, 60 degrees of throttle position, and we have a full throttle switch under the pedal I run. You don't have to. You can do it off the TPS, but that's another. So if Lizzie pedals, it immediately comes off the nitrous. So you have to see all those things for nitrous to come on, but horror stories with a carburetor, the thing floods, the guy goes to the floor, forgot he got the nitrous on, it's dumping nitrous, goes to fire, explodes. It's a bomb. So those are some safety tips. Be careful with your torches. Yeah, you can fog one. We've all done it in a hurry. Carbon fiber you can't do, but I've seen guys hold it in one spot, on a bottle. Get yourself a blanket, that goes on it. Plug it in. That's what we do. Just, a few little things will keep you safe. There's always a chance of dropping a bottle, just like in a oxygen bottle for your cutting torch. That valve, the bottle falls over and the valve breaks off, you're going to get hurt. And that's how there was a guy killed, I think it happened at Valdosta. He dropped the nitrous bottle, it snapped the valve off, and the valve went through his chest. So, it's things that can happen with anything under high pressure like that, so just be careful. Be careful filling bottles. We change our fittings on the bottles, cycle them out every 6 months, they fatigue, you don't want to snap one of them off while you're filling a bottle can take off, Just know what you're dealing with. Be careful. And, knock on wood, we're We've been pretty lucky. Lizzie knows what to do, you know, how to shut her bottles off and on restart. But you can always have a nitrous cylinder, get a little piece of trash in it, hang it open, stumping nitrous in upon them. So just, I guess, be careful. Be aware of what you're dealing with. This thing, the nitrous can come on with the motor off. Just hit the ignition, it'll go off. Now, you would say, why does it explode? It explodes because you have fuel mixed with the nitrous. If it was only nitrous, it wouldn't, but you're never going to have the plenum completely dry. And when he went to the floor, he had just enough fuel to make a bomb. So, just be careful with it, know what you're dealing with. And, you know, my advice is if it floods over, shut the nitrous system off, purge it all off, spin it over with the ignition off, clear the motor out, wait a couple minutes, you know, I mean, it's live to race another round, not. So just be careful. Well, we can control individual cylinders is the biggest thing, where, you know, guys think they can, like on 2.4s, they can pull a little main jet out of it to get you. You're not going to get there. You're dreaming. You know, I mean, that carburetor is just, you know, you lose, a lot of people don't know this, we'll touch on this, but every system, you lose about 25 pounds an hour through the booster because it starts to lose booster signal. Because the injector doesn't know it's computer driven, so it puts fuel like you wanted it. But on a single system, it doesn't come into play, but as you add nitrous, you disturb your booster signal. Now, you get these carburetor gurus that tell you they can fix the booster. Come on, man. You're not fixing it. How you're going to hurt it down low or pick it up high. You know how, everybody knows how a carburetor works. You know, it's a good, let's face it, for a mechanical deal to do what it does, it's pretty good. But when you add nitrous into the combination, you know, you start disturbing airflow to the booster, pull less fuel. So you got to know that. So in turn, on a carburetor motor, we'd enrich in the nitrous side as we increase the nitrous amount. In the old days, is how we did it, to make up for the booster. You know, and I could show you dyno runs from, we probably, I could just pretty well tell you, we have more actual nitrous dyno pulls on the dyno than probably anybody in the country. We've been running nitrous on the dyno since, I don't know, 25 years. So we got, I remember a day VP Fuel came to test fuel. We ran 4 mother bottles that day through my dyno engine. That's just a dyno mule, you know, testing different fuels, you know. So we learn a lot, but I see guys dyno nitrous, that's a whole nother story. You could get that strain gauge to trick it, so they'll say, oh, I got 1,300. No, you don't. It flashed at 1,300 because it saw that instant deal. The dyno valve couldn't grab it quick enough. You got to get the flat, the average, which we've got our valves timed. It's just like timing a camshaft. Our water valves are timed for nitrous. You know, when it sees it, it'll grab it pretty quick. But still, we have our little trick ways of, you know, getting a flat number. I see dyno numbers that go like this, and they're looking at this number. That's not, it's this. It depends on the application. Like a 565, even this 632 would run on C16, but we run 25. Our main fuel is C25. You know, we got onto that fuel back in 2010. I actually ran it first at Norwalk, Ohio, won the race with C25. First little funny story for the guys is I pull up to the scales and they check for your fuel. So the NHI guy walks over, he says, your fuel's illegal. I said, no, it ain't. He said, yeah, it's not C23 is what was the choice of fuel. I said, you need to go read your rule book. I said, don't say nothing about what kind. It says VP fuel. So he trots off, he gets the rule book. He goes, yeah, you're right. He goes, what is it? I said, I don't know. You tell me. You're the tech guy. You know, I was just trying to keep it undercover as long as I could. So Finally, I had to give it up because they needed to get some C25, get the numbers. That's after they agreed that I was right. You know, I mean, I can read a rule book. It said VP fuels, didn't say C23, didn't say C16. It said VP fuels. What's that mean? Anything they make. And he goes, man, I can't believe we missed that. I said, yeah, you missed it. I didn't miss it. But we won the race on 25, and then kind of everybody got wind of it. It's pretty well a fuel of choice. A little, it doesn't have what I call a puddling effect, where
Okay.
and that's what the 23 was doing. You know, just it was a characteristic of fuel. It's what guys told them, the feedback they were getting. When I ran the 25, oh, they went crazy. They did all kinds of testing, and yeah, we think you're on to something. We think you're right, and then they would push 25. You know, but yeah, I've been with VP fuels my whole career. You know, so it's been pretty good. Okay, Joe, my buddy from Florida. I think we did it for you. If anybody has any questions, tell them to call when you're watching. But glad to help out again. And if you need anything, you know where to find me, or you could always find Freddie. He's down by you.
Welcome back, Engine Performance Expo. Joe Castello, Lake Speed Jr. Watching Pat Musi at all is an entertaining time.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Pat's just a great guy. I had so much fun getting to know him doing this video shoot for him. So this is great to be able to talk to him now.
Well, you can tell which videos are popular by the crowd that's in our lounge, like watching and really kind of checking out the TV at all. But we are fortunate because we now have him live. Pat, welcome to the Engine Performance Expo. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me.
Oh, we are thrilled. And I can tell you that there are just so many different angles that we can go with you. We're going to spend time, obviously, on tuning, and we got some tech questions already populated. So you folks out there, put your questions in the comment section. We're going to get them, and we're going to run them through Pat. But at the same time, you guys have got so much going on. New shop, TV shows. You guys are like a multimedia racing engine building empire.
Yeah, we're pretty excited. I mean, the new shop's a new deal. Lizzie's got a new show coming up here shortly. We're excited about that, and things have been good. You know, it couldn't go any better right now.
Let's spend a minute on the new show because let's face it, we were talking about it yesterday. This thing that we're part of, racing, cars, engines, it's got a huge injection of interest from many new people through this there's several television shows that are all popping up, and you guys have been a big part of it. Lizzie's got something new coming out. I don't know exactly how much of that information we can relay, but she has blossomed. She's become a star.
Yeah, she handles it well. I mean, you know, it's funny. She grew up from 5 years old watching me at the racetrack, and it's amazing what kids soak in. You know, but she's done a great job. She's doing a great job. She's a good driver. I don't think I could pick anybody else I'd put in a car right now, you know, that I wouldn't have to train. Tricia, my other daughter, would be one, you know, that I could train, but she's, you know, needs some lap time. Lizzie's got the lap time right now, and I'll tell you, it tickles the hell out of me when she beats these guys that been doing it 30 years, probably never won a national event, most of them. Lizzie has, you know, she's won in PGRA, and she was the first girl to win a no prep race and the first ever person to win 3 in a row, so we're pretty proud of that for her. She's done a great job.
You should be, and she also has the personality, which ultimately, like, racing in general is just loaded. Look at this guy next to me, Lake Speed Jr. Pat, yourself, like, come on. This sport is loaded with personality. You got to bring a little something extra if people are going to be interested, and she definitely has that.
Well, we appreciate that. We tried to, you know, I want to thank all our fans out there. They've all been great. You know, sometimes I can't answer them all. I answer them kind of in a group, but everybody congratulated me about the building. Within an hour, we had, I don't know, 1,300 views. It's crazy. You know, it's amazing what we do, you know, but I just appreciate them all. I've always, my whole career, I'll stop what I'm doing, even if I'm pulling a cylinder head off to sign an autograph. And Lizzie's kind of like that. You got to be, your fans are your fan base. I mean, let's face it, what a lot of these guys don't get, we're entertainers out there. Look at John Force. He's a primary one you can look at. He knows at the end of the day, yeah, we're all racers. Don't get me wrong. You got to be a good, hardcore racer, but we still got to entertain the crowd. They're our base, you know, so I can't thank the fans enough for supporting all of us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, and we've got some fans out there. We've also got some engine builders out there that want to absorb some of the knowledge. Yeah, I'm good at the segue.
You are. You're good.
I give good segue.
Like you're a pro or something.
Thank you very much. All right, first question coming from Chris. Wants to know, Pat, do you think you would have been as successful as an engine builder without your driving and racing career? And is it important for a performance engine shop to be in some kind of racing so that they can prove that they're good at what they do?
Absolutely. If you go back and let's just forget the engine building. Let's just take a guy like Jerry Bickle. He crewed on Jim Yates's car, gave him that experience, the racing experience. I think me driving all them years in pro stock and the pro street deal, you need it, and you have to stay active. You can't sit home and think you've got it, because just when you think you got it, they're beating on your door. You got the target on your back, so you got to be out there. You got to be in the trenches. You got to be learning all the time and stay up to date. I think we got a real good lead on a fuel injection, helped us out a lot, you know, but it's kind of what we're known for. But yeah, absolutely. If either you don't have a house car, let's say, or you're not personally involved, it's pretty difficult.
That makes perfect sense.
I agree. I think that the culture of racing teaches you to be that competitor that drives you to look for that next edge. And like Pat was saying, if you get complacent and say, okay, I'm good, you've already lost a step behind, actually. Because everybody, I mean, think about this whole week, you know, from Warren Johnson to Doug Yates, everyone said the same thing. You have to keep trying to find that next little thing, because races are won with advantages. And I know, Pat, when we were talking, doing the video, you talked about that advantage you gained from going to EFI for your system. So talk a little bit, I know you talked about the video, you talk a little bit about how that EFI system really made you more consistent, because I know it was your big thing, is you said anyone can, you know, burn down an engine to make one pass. But as WJ said yesterday, you can't tune it up if you blew it up. We're going to beat that like a dead horse, by the way, because that's my new favorite saying.
Yeah.
But yeah, go on, Pat, and expand on that a little bit, because you talked a lot about that in the video, about how to use the EFI to your advantage to have that durable power.
Well, yeah, and I call the guys, you know, yeah, they might outrun us 100 to 2, but they're one-hit wonders. You know, we're making lap after lap and not pulling the cylinder heads off. But it took a long time to get there. But you have to give the engine what it wants. Sometimes in our game, a little different in pro stock, you have to lose a little power normally aspirated to make it durable for the amount of nitrous you put in it. And I think we've come a long way. We still got way more to go. We got some exciting things. We showed a little bit of our hand at Bradenton. But we're going to show some more this year. But our stuff, everybody knows. We don't work on our stuff at the racetrack. Heads don't come off. We'll make laps. We'll walk around the pits and cylinder heads are off. Pistons and rods are off. I'm not racing like that. I'm doing it. I mean, those days are gone. I mean, if you can't tune that thing, you don't belong out there.
Excellent. Next question coming in. How do you determine, and we heard a lot about that saturation you were talking about, and that got everybody kind of sparking a little bit, because it's something conceptually we can all visualize, but you can't visualize it. So he wants to know, how do you determine when which cylinder is getting the saturation, and how would you adjust each nozzle to fix it?
Okay, well, when we get to that saturation point, and we have a scale from a 350 Chevy to a 959 about how many pounds an hour of nitrous it'll take. But we always, look, racers are always going to run them on the edge. When you get to the point, it's at the end of the day, it's a normally aspirated engine. So when you get suspended nitrous in the plenum, you get what's called the draw effect. It's going to, if a valve opens opposite the one that's spraying nitrous, because it's continually spraying, it's going to pull it to that runner because you have a lot of suspended nitrous in the plenum. So my way of doing it is we pull nitrous away from the cylinders. How we determine those cylinders is everybody laughs, but I have the old Sun leak down tester. Every single run I make, I leak the engine. And I keep track of what it's doing because it'll change from air to different racetracks. It'll change on you, and you have to keep track of the engine, which cylinder is starting to get leaned on, and we'll pull a little away from it. Now, that doesn't mean it's not getting the same amount of nitrous as the rest of the holes. It's getting it from somewhere else because of the suspended amount in the plenum. So a lot of guys try to do it with cylinder trims, which mean pull a degree out of timing out of that cylinder or add some fuel. The quickest way to get there is to pull 0.02 of nitrous away, and then you'll see it in the leak down. You'll see it in your vacuum. Remember, vacuum is based on all 8 cylinders, so you have to figure out which hole is doing it, and that's why we go to the leak down tester. And I can I've leaked so many cylinders in 20 years now, I can about tell when I'm rolling it over and got my thumb on the hose, where we're at. But it just comes with, doing it so long. But that's what people have to understand. Like, we'll always hear the comments from the turbo gurus and the blown gurus. Well, the nitrous guys just got to put more nitrous in it. No, that's not the case. It's a normally aspirated engine. We're not forced induction. A blower is forced induction. You can put fuel in it. You can put more fuel in it than the motor will take, obviously. The same with a turbo. We're not forced induction. End of the day, whatever you can get in that intake port, when that valve opens, whatever you can get in there, that's what you're going to get. And so you reach that point, and I call it the saturation point.
Excellent.
So, Pat, I'd like to ask you to explain why leak down is a tool that can tell you if you have too much. I have a suspicion. I know why, because they said the other day I'm the ring guy. Yeah, but really, Matt Hartford and Keith Jones, they're the ring guys.
He's an oil guy.
I'm the apprentice, right? I'm the apprentice ring guy. That's what it is. But Pat, if you don't mind, explain why leak down is a way of knowing that cylinder got too much nitrous.
Well, listen, Total Seal makes the best piece for us. We've worked hard on it. Matt's worked hard. You guys have worked hard. But you have to remember, let's just take the top ring, for instance. Leaves the starting line. At the finish line, if you could somehow get that cylinder head off in 10 seconds, that ring would be glowing red. So now it cools back down. You make another run. It heats up. It cools down, heats up. So it starts to lose radial tension, and it starts to give up. So that's where the leak down guy comes in, because we run way more gas ports than probably most people run, because we can get more runs out of it just expanding that ring with the gas port. So you got to know now when it's really hurt, and we have numbers that we use, then you got to pull a head off, put a piston in. But that's where we come in, and we've been successful. We don't get it to that point. We've got our tune up that close now and really reliable. We got good parts. But I would say the top ring gets leaned out the most. Now, again, the piston takes a beat, and that's annealing, we call it, because it's going from a heated condition to a cooling, heated to cooling. Lizzie knows one of the things we do, and I could kind of help everybody here. When we get down the other end, remember, everything's glowing red. So you have an intake valve in a couple of holes that's hanging in that cylinder open, and you get what's called the warp effect. The valve can actually get, the intake valve and get so much heat from sitting there. So Lizzie knows that turn the ignition off and roll that motor over. You'll see the fuel guys do it. You'll see a lot of people that are smart doing it, and get some cool air through it and try to cool that thing down instead of pulling it back to the pits, and it's too late then. The intake valve's been hung open, and So that's one of the things we do helps out. It might help some of the guys out there.
Nice little tip right there. This question coming from Pat, another Pat. Is it better to use a completely separate fuel system for nitrous, or can you piggyback on your main fuel system by using a fuel log with multiple regulators?
That's a little bit of a trick question, but I'll help them. It depends on how many pounds an hour of fuel you're running through the motor. Now, let's just take a 632 with a 350 horsepower shot. You can do that with one fuel pump and piggyback it. But you have to keep track of the amount of fuel the engine uses on its own and the amount of nitrous systems, how much fuel that's using. And if you exceed the pounds per hour that the pump can put on, well, then you need another pump for the nitrous. So let's just explain it. You know, for the average guy, a top sportsman guy can piggyback it, no problem. But for a guy running multiple systems like we do, we have to run a mechanical pump, but we're fuel injected, so that's a different animal than a carbureted animal. But we went to a mechanical pump for that reason. We couldn't get an electric pump way back in the early days that would keep up with the fuel demand. So it's all about fuel demand. You have to be aware of how much fuel that engine is using.
Okay, next I want to pick kind of a different question regarding nitrous oxide and Zumi headers, which we have seen kind of come around more recently, not so recent actually anymore. What is the main reason and the gain for going to Zumi style headers with nitrous oxide?
Well, we wanted to control the reversion deal in the collector, you know, going back up in the cylinder, hot air. We wanted to control each cylinder. We want to clear the cylinder. That's why the blower guys were on the Zumis first. I looked at that, and we were running the first to put Zumis on. And, you know, a lot of guys fought us in the beginning, and, you know, they were down 2 miles an hour, and we've proven it on the racetrack. It's faster. The motor is easier to manage. You have 8 little cylinders now, so we just we run them on 632s. We have some of the outlaws 632 guys on them, and they laughed at those guys, but they don't laugh after they run. You know, I mean, on a nitrous engine with a lot of nitrous, it's definitely the way to go.
Excellent, excellent. Next one, I've heard a lot of people using a wide open throttle sensor to activate their nitrous system. When you're running into power management issues and you throttle the car, the nitrous kicks on and off. How does this affect that nitrous saturation you're talking about? I guess in racing
our
conditions.
stuff is, you know, we have a lot of safety built into our ECU, you know, where it'll hold timing out when you release the throttle. Those are the things you have to be careful of that guys miss. For instance, let's just say you got all 6 stages on one of ours. You back out of the throttle and it goes back to 30 degrees. Well, you're going to kill it. So ours hangs at whatever timing we're back to for, you know, 0.7 or a second, and lets it stay retarded till you lay back into the throttle so it doesn't hurt itself. That was something we learned early on. But that's a big deal, and that's probably where it gets the bad rap. You're talking about pedaling or getting out of the throttle when you have that much in it. You know, so we have a safety built into our ECU that does that. We do a little bit with the fuel, you know, but that's something to keep in mind. Remember, you don't want the timing to go back. Most of the time when you release the throttle or release the solenoids, the timing goes right back, goes back to its normal. Let's just say you're at 30 degrees and you're retarding it to 10 degrees. Well, it's going to 30, but you still have nitrous suspended in the plenum. So you got to be aware. A lot of it's common sense if you think about it.
All right, next, and we'll try to go a little quicker, just a couple minutes remaining with Pat. When you fix the cylinders with higher leak down, do they come back? Meaning, when you correct the tune-up, does the leak down get better? And that one coming from Mr. Ben Strader.
Huh.
You know, amazingly, he's right on target. You know, if you catch it early like we do and you know what to feel for, what to look for, they will come back. They'll never come back to where they're supposed to be, but they'll come back to where we can run it. They'll either stabilize or come back you know, 2 or 3% better, because a lot of times the ring gets distorted, or the ring groove, it gets hung up in the ring groove and you're leaking it. And you know, sometimes I've had them where I can catch it and I'll roll it over a couple times and it starts to come back in. So yes, you can catch it early. Listen, know what you're looking for and catch it early. If it gets to a point where it's, you know, starting to get the piston, lifting a ring line, you're not going to fix that. But the top ring, you can kind of get back into shape, believe it or not.
Pat, we want to thank you for taking the time with us here at the Engine Performance Expo. This has been great. It's always been great.
Awesome job, Pat.
Yeah, really appreciate it. And why don't you give, for the people out there, you mentioned a Facebook page a little bit earlier where they can keep up with you and your adventures. Where can they follow you?
All right, thank you. Follow us. You can go on Pat Musi Racing Engines or follow us. And like I said, we appreciate you guys, our fans, and I'll take whatever time I have out for them.
Excellent. Thank you, Pat. Really appreciate it. How about that? Pat Musi Racing Engines. And to hear that Lizzie's got something really cool coming up. It's going to be an all-girl version of the show. Super excited. We'll be following along. All right, we're going to keep on rolling. We're going to throw it over to Logan and Ed as they're going to tell us a little bit about lifter bushings. Stick around. What a day, what a day, what a day. Yeah, my brain is swollen. I've learned so much today. They told us, don't start cars. We are not going to listen.